Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of USA Global TV and Radio. The content presented is for informational purposes only and is intended to foster open discussion and debate. Viewer discretion is advised. USA Global TV and Radio does not endorse any particular viewpoint and encourages viewers to seek out additional information and perspectives. Saving America with Dr. David D. Schein.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein. It's the third anniversary of the disaster at the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan with the Abbey Gate terrorist attack. 13 of our brave members of the military were killed. At the time, Kamala Harris claimed to have been the last one in the room with Biden. She recently referred to the disaster as a courageous decision by Biden. She seems to have left out her own participation. She went on to say it ended America's longest war. She missed the part about billions of dollars of weapons left behind and the critical strategic value of the airbase, in addition to the horrendous situation where a number of America's allies and some American citizens were left behind. As the son of a 28-year vet of the U.S. Navy, I have strong feelings for our military. Yet Biden looked at his watch as the coffins of the 13 were brought home from Abbey Gate. Neither Harris nor Biden saluted the dead this past week. However, former President Trump honored them at Arlington National Cemetery. Consider this, please, when you vote this fall for a U.S. president. Who will make this country and the world safer? America's reckless Iran policy has the Middle East on the brink of war. This is from a special report from Fox News. During the Biden-Harris administration, the United States has freed close to $100 billion in Iranian assets. Now, that would be bad enough, but it has also attempted to renew negotiations on Iran's nuclear deal. But I really think that that's kind of a pointless deal at the moment, because they're so close to having a nuclear weapon. I don't think there's anything the United States can realistically do other than locating the facilities in Iran and bombing them. I don't think that's on the list for the next few weeks. Pandering to Iran has produced terrible results. On October 7, 2023, was the Hamas and Gazans' atrocity against primarily innocent civilians in Israel. This was funded by Iran. On top of this, Iran once, but Hezbollah on a regular basis, has launched rocket attacks on Israel, hitting primarily civilian targets. The rockets were provided by Iran in any case. This amounts to over 170 U.S. bases and other assets being attacked. Despite being our only true ally in the region, the Jewish state is now in more danger than perhaps since 1948 when it was created. This is a failure of deterrence by the Biden-Harris policies in the Middle East. The peace observed during the Trump administration proves that a strong position against Iran definitely works. The Philippines accuses Chinese vessels of blocking the South China Sea supply routes, ramming its ship. This is a critical area where major shipping takes place. In this case, Chinese ships asserted dominance over international waters that are controlled by the Philippines. This is a sad development since both countries claim to recently be trying to work together to reduce tensions. China claims sovereignty over nearly all of the China Sea. However, this includes areas belonging to Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Brunei. An international arbitral tribunal in 2016 ruled that Beijing's claim had no basis under international law. Of course, the CCP rejects that decision. Now to the campaign of the century. It is unquestioned that this is one of the oddest presidential campaigns in the last century. We have had only our second current president decide not to run for re-election. We have had an extremely unpopular VP step into his place. She then selected a very far left Minnesota governor as her running mate. On the other side is a person who lost the presidency largely due to the fallout from COVID-19 and his own weird personality. A big question for over a month has been, when would Harris do her first interview? Well, that was decided that she would interview with CNN, hardly a neutral source, folks. Then we hear that she is so weak she will do the interview with her commie running mate, Tim Walz, next to her. This is strange indeed. This appears to be an attempt to repeat Biden's basement strategy from the 2020 campaign. It is not likely that she can do this for the next 60, 70 days here in 2024. So far, the slopstream media have been allowing her that space, and they shouldn't be doing that. Also on the campaign trail, it was finally confirmed that the debate rules will be the same for the Trump-Harris debate on September 10th as they were for the recent Trump-Biden debate. This will hopefully flush out Harris from her basement bunker. Trump will need to focus on the issues and hopefully will win this round handily as he did the first time. Campus anti-Semitism flares again. As the new college school year kicks off, America again faces offensive student protests dominated by anti-Semitism. The worst part about these protests is that they make no sense. Israel moved its troops out of Gaza nearly 2 decades ago. They were not occupying Gaza. The people of Israel have been rewarded by terrorism, murders, and kidnappings. That is not to ignore the rocket attacks. The protesters are plain and simple on the wrong side. They have harassed Jewish students on many campuses. This has to end. On the positive side, many campuses disrupted by last year's school protests have moved to block demonstrators earlier in the process to keep more order on campuses. It is important to note that anti-Semitism, even if disguised as anti-Israel or anti-Zionism, is still racism. Note that public universities and any private university that's receiving public money in any form must provide a campus that welcomes all. I urge the Biden-Harris administration to crack down and immediately withdraw all federal funds from colleges that permit these protests and where any harassment or efforts to block Jewish students take place. A number of states have already won suspension of the ridiculous Biden-Harris Title IX amendments. This is the ones that want to allow biological men into women and girls' restrooms in schools covered by Title IX. These rules were set up to protect women originally. These silly amendments would undo some of those important protections. In the latest ruling, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals granted a motion for an injunction. The court's strong opinion included this language. It is certainly highly likely that the department's new regulations defining discrimination on the basis of sex to include gender identity is contrary to the law and in excess of statutory authority. This appeals court covers Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. Rising attacks on the U.S. power grid. Security for America increasingly is a concern. One area that is sometimes described as a soft target is the U.S. power grid. A recent BNN Bloomberg report cited an increased number of threats to the U.S. power grid. This would be a concern at any time. However, there is now growing concern that terrorists may target the power grid specifically to interfere with the presidential elections. A North American Electric Reliability Corporation report indicated that the power companies reported 185 physical attacks or threats on grid infrastructure in 2023. That was more than double the number from 2021. One senior U.S. official told the Canadian news outlet that threats against infrastructure such as the nation's power grid are becoming more acute with the election little more than 2 months away. Christopher Goldsmith, founder of the nonprofit task force Butler Institute, told BNN Bloomberg that strategic blackouts could affect voting locations or impact the certification of elections. Something like a grid attack before, during, or after an election could sow in an unbelievable amount of political chaos, according to Goldsmith. A May Bloomberg News poll found that half of swing state voters expect violence around the elections. Politico's news reported in April that rising incidents of domestic terrorism and a surge in state-sponsored cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are posing a heightened risk to the U.S. power system and the elections. The current geopolitical situation has significant ramifications for the North American grid, again, according to NERC. Police have charged suspects in connection with plots to attack energy facilities in Idaho, Maryland, and Ohio since 2022. Folks, this is a real risk. To wrap up on a different note with a report from NTD, a 2,492 carat diamond was just found in the country of Botswana. Lucara Diamond Corporation, a Canadian mining company, announced the discovery of the almost 2,500 carat diamond in Botswana. It is reportedly the second largest diamond ever discovered. The largest was over 3,000 carats and was given to the British royal family, where it was incorporated into some of the royal family's crown jewels. Mr. Leonard is also known as Joe Leonard Detroit. He is an author, blogger, cancer survivor, constitutionalist, former IT professional, podcaster, political activist, social media influencer, and speaker. He is also the author of Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, a #1 Amazon bestseller, and How to Write a Book and Get It Published. He is the host of the Constitutionalist Politics podcast. He describes himself as born of the 1960s, very much a person of the 1980s. We welcome Joseph M. Leonard for his first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you, David. And if we're relying on Joseph M. Leonard to save America, we're all in trouble.
Well, you and I have talked before, so I know you've got a lot of good ideas. As you know, we follow a 3-question format. And the first question, you make a point of saying you are a lifelong resident of Wyandotte, Michigan, adding by choice. Tell us a little bit about that. It's just caught my attention.
Yeah, my way of starting off kind of the bio aspect. And to be clear, yes, I am Joseph M. Leonard. It looks like French. It's not Leonard. It's actually Polish. It was probably Leonard Łaskowicz at some point, but it's Leonard without an O. And I got to throw that middle initial in there because there is an author out of South Carolina, Joseph Leonard. So I've got to make sure I make that spelling distinction and name distinction. But yeah, born and raised in Southeast Michigan, a southern suburb of Detroit. I'm not fond of the winters, of course, but 4 seasons are nice, and by choice, I pretty much choose to stay here, family, friends, and all that. Yeah, I love the Vegas area. I'd love to move to Vegas, but no, by choice, I do stay in the southeastern Michigan area. I was born one city over, basically spent 99.99999% of my life in Wyandotte, and yeah, I'm happy with that. I like our city. It's nice.
Well, we used to have an acronym, BMOC, Big Man on Campus. And I'm guessing that when you're in a smaller town, in contrast to where I am in Houston, Texas, which is a area of about 4 million people, give or take 500,000 or so, it's a lot harder to be the BMOC, right?
Hey, that's true. You're like you want to be a big fish in a small pond or just one of the minnows in the big lake, right?
Absolutely. Switching to a little bit more serious topic, um, your book, Constitutionalist Politics, and you have it trademarked. Tell our audience about this unique trademark word and the point of your podcast.
Yeah, I felt called to do more than I've been doing. And I thought, well, I could start a low key, kind of low cost podcast, as is my fourth international book is called Podcasting Quick Start Guide. So I could teach you how to do it too. Right? I could teach, by you, I mean anyone out there. You could start
Yes.
a low key, low cost, low scale kind of podcast and see what happens and go with it. Uh, I'm in my second season now, but I felt called to do more than what I was. I'm older now. I have health issues, older, slower, poorer. So I have to do more from my couch these days than as a political activist this my whole life could do before, driving a lot of places, going a lot of places, speaking a lot of places. So now I sit my butt on my couch and reach people through the internet. But conservative, whether people either really gravitate or want to run from that word. So I thought I need a new approach. Constitutionalist, Christian based U.S. constitutionalism, right? Reach some of those who may be a little left of center Christians, but we can still talk with one another, even though I am a right of center Christian, together based in the root of the Bible, things that we could come together and agree on. And that's the point and the meaning of my show. Like, it's not, I was born and raised Catholic, right? My grandfather was Lutheran, became Catholic to marry my grandmother on my mother's side, Josephine. But I like to say it's not a Catholic show. It's not a Lutheran show, not a Methodist show, a Baptist show, a yada, yada, yada show. It's Christian overall umbrella because there are, I lost track of the number of different flavors of Bible there are out there. Jesus didn't do that. God didn't command it. We as humans did that and screwed things up in the process. So, what can all of these 100 different version Bible readers come together and agree on are what Jesus said, and let's focus on those things and apply them to our modern politics.
Fascinating. And I certainly understand that. And by the way, if you swing through Houston, I think you'll pick up another 40 or 50 different religions. I have seen some that pop up and they'll have a sign. And of course, some of them are pretty big. We're home to some pretty large operations here. Thousands of people show up every weekend to hang out with some of these cats.
Yeah, I thought I saw something the other day on Google about the David Schein cult.
Well, they haven't checked in with me yet. As long as there's a royalty associated with it, I'll be glad to discuss it with them.
I go into that on my show, and then my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book.
And that is our next question is, so your current book out is called Terror Strikes coming soon to a city near you. That's actually the whole title. It's not Terror Strikes. And by the way, the book's coming soon. So how'd you come up with that title, and what is the book about? Why should our audience read it?
Well, as I was going to say, even in a book about terrorism, although I'll go into it's not entirely really about terrorism, much more than that. There's a comic relief chapter, right? We have got to keep our sense of humor, and though yes, it's Terror Strikes, there's a bazillion books called Terror Strikes. The subtitle makes all the difference. Coming soon to a city near you. And yes, I mean that. Terrorism isn't just a New York 9/11 thing. It can happen anytime, any place. Like LAX was shut down by a terror attack on an electrical grid substation. Shut down LAX for 3 days. There was a train derailed between St. Louis and Chicago. Terrorism. It can happen anytime, any place. But I'm not trying to sell you on fear porn. I just want you awake and alert, not paranoid, right? But I like to say about the book, yes, about terrorism, but not book about death, but life and living. Life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate, good over evil, individualism over collectivism, political aspect of the book, freedom over tyranny, family and friends. So it's way more than terrorism. And if you like baseball, there's some baseball in there too. Wink, wink, nod, nod. So, the terrorism is the thread that ties the historical fiction, #1 Amazon bestseller, together. I also call it faction. Historical fiction's the legal proper literature term, but I like to make up my own terms. I call it faction, part fact, part fiction.
It sounds fascinating. Now, is this set? Is this been triggered because you released it, I think, in 2022? Is this based on a lot of the reports that we're hearing? It seems over the last 2 years, which has been since your book was written, talking about all of the gotaways at the southern border and some at the northern border, that there's, Christopher Wray, the current FBI director, is saying we're in more danger now than we were when 9/11 happened.
Hence, coming soon to a city near you. It may not make Newsmax, OAN, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, because it's a localized event and it doesn't get the national news. That doesn't mean terrorism hasn't happened. And it may have happened in your backyard, just everybody else hasn't heard of it. And indeed, yes. And in the book, I go into the very distinction between legal immigration and illegal immigration, the dangers of the latter, and we are a nation of the former.
Now, did you think a lot about the title of your book and the content of your book when the CrowdStrike problem happened about a week ago, and all those places in Europe and the airlines were fouled up, and all sorts of weird things happened? And you notice how quickly they rushed out there and said, "Oh, it's not a terrorist attack. It's not a service denial attack. We just fouled up." And I don't know about you, but I'm still having trouble buying that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of these things are underlying terrorist attacks, but indeed, they won't own up and admit to it. It's, just human error or this or that or the other. It's like the LAX outage that I
Yes.
spoke of. 3 days it was out. They still will not, to this day, talk about it again because it was a substation attack. It was a not a forewarning, but kind of a I'm having a mental block here, but a minor excursion, a test. If we do this, can we get away with it? And then Well, that worked. Now, how do we upscale that? Minor things can lead to bigger things if we don't deal in the reality of what that actually was.
Well, I think, and certainly following on that point, the World Trade Center was attacked before, and
Yep.
the cats that were involved in that, it really didn't seem that anybody got that excited about it. But sadly, I think it was about 8 years later when 9/11 happened, and people found out that you can go after the same building twice.
Yeah, they thought they could topple the World Trade Center with a U-Haul bomb, but the place they misplaced where they put the U-Haul truck bomb, and it didn't fully explode to the degree they thought it would. They thought they could undermine the stability from below. And since that didn't work, they thought, okay, well, let's attack it from above. So, right. It can happen the same place twice, or it may never happen the same place twice ever. You don't know. But the point being, 9/11 was a big deal, a big ordeal. And terrorists, despite wanting to claim they're martyrs for God, do want to actually live. They find suckers to suicide themselves by plane into the Trade Center, but the plotters live. You notice that? They want to live. And since we went in full force into Afghanistan, they think, oh, well, wait a minute. We don't want to do anything that scale again and poke the eye of the beast and get that response, because we'll be killed then, right? So a death by 1,000 cuts, right? You poke here, poke there, poke, 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 poke. The tiger might not strike full force because, again, despite all their rhetoric about, soldiers for Allah and willing to martyr themselves, no, they want to live too. they
Yeah,
want
I
us.
think
They want us to die. They want to live.
And Joe, you may have missed it in the very recent news, but the three folks that they found that been under arrest for a while, who reportedly were the mastermind of 9/11, have just agreed to stay at be guests our house guests at Gitmo for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in that. I think the death penalty would have made more sense. Especially one of the concerns I have is when they hold these terrorists like this, it gives the other terrorists who are their buddies and their fans an incentive to create some type of a ransom thing where they say, oh, well, we've caught this U.S. senator wandering around the world and we'll trade him for the big mastermind and stuff like that. So
Right.
I'm not impressed with the fact that they made a settlement. And but that I don't know if you saw that, but it literally just came in today,
Yeah, I
announced
saw
by
it.
the Biden administration, and
And
there's just no justice.
does it surprise anyone? An administration that is weak on criminals in our own land is also weak on terrorists. An administration, Biden, who was VP during Obama, as I call him, and the Iran deal, sending money, supporting terrorists. Biden, who also lifted all the sanctions, put a couple on here and there to pretend he's tough, but he made Iran rich. What's going on in Israel now and in the Middle East would not have happened if not for Biden lifting 90% of all the sanctions. So they are awash in oil money again. They were almost dirt poor, bankrupt, couldn't fund the terrorism, but now they're awash in oil cash again, and they're able to fund these proxy terrorist groups. So a lot of this wouldn't be happening. So they're willing, in my mind, openly, my opinion, aiding and abetting the enemy, Iran, the biggest state sponsor of terrorism on the entire planet. So, of course, it's not a surprise they make a deal with terrorists.
Absolutely. Well, Joseph M. Leonard, it's been a great pleasure to visit with you again. As some of our audience know, I was the guest on your show, and we could do this for a whole hour or two. But what my producer tells me is if we keep it short, people are more likely to listen to the whole thing. But tell our audience how they can get some more information about you.
Yeah, well, first, now this may air soon, and hopefully it'll air some other time on a replay at some point. So the show with you on constitutionalist politics right now is penciled in for the last Wednesday of August 2024. So it will air then, and hopefully people will hear it when it airs, or if this airs again after that, they'll find the backdated episode. But to find me, you could see, if you see this on video, terrorstrikes.info at the top of my screen. That's the book related site. I also have the author site, josephmleonard.us. Again, it looks like Leonard. It's actually Polish. It's Leonard without an O, josephmleonard.us. And for those who care, I'm part Italian and German on my mother's side too, but majority Polish. Yeah, and please go ahead, make Polak jokes. I'm more than happy with them because, if we can't laugh at ourselves, we have no business laughing at others. And
I totally agree. I think that's too much. As we grow up, a common reference for success or failure is the letter grade. Whether we're in grammar school or college, we all want an A grade and certainly regard an F as a big failure. Here at Saving America, we scan the news for reports of celebrities, politicians, or others who just end up in the public eye. So the A grades are awarded to people and organizations for great service to their communities, and the F grades, of course, are unfortunately more common, are awarded to those who need to do a lot better. The badge of dishonor today belongs to failed Health and Human Services Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and his fellow secretary and U.S. presidential cabinet member, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Yeah, two people pretty darn close to the presidency, but telling the truth appears to be a problem spreading throughout the Biden administration. And it's no secret I've referred to Biden in person as the liar in chief. And like I said, it does seem to be spreading throughout the other scumballs who are supporting the Biden administration. Now, every American is aware that the southern border with Mexico is experiencing the worst invasion of illegals in history. There's no real debate about that, folks. Most are given a pass and get to stay here. Some of them are given court dates as far out as 2030, 6 years from now. What are they going to do in the meantime, folks? Going to rape your daughter, rob your business, steal your car, take your jobs? Yeah, let's have a meaningful discussion about what pouring 8 million illegals into a country's economy actually causes. And how about the gotaways? Just the other day, they arrested 2 people who are on the international terrorist list. How many are on that list who have come into this country who have not been detected? Yes, folks, I am personally predicting, and I predicted it to friends and others, that we are cooking up toward another 9/11, unfortunately. And I am very, very concerned about that. And I don't think this administration is taking that threat seriously at all at the moment. And it may take something bad to happen, sadly, for them to actually pay attention. But let's hope that doesn't happen. But boy, it is sure scary out there. Speaking of lying, Mayorkas claims the border is doing just fine, despite the fact that 85% of the people that they do detect are given passes to stay here. How is that protecting the border? He's just lying to try and save his job since there's an impeachment pending against him. This is just inexcusable, folks. We're overrun by drug traffickers, people traffickers, and maybe other very harmful people and terrorists. And we also have one of the most unstable world security situations since 9/11. And then you have the Department of Defense Secretary, Austin, having surgery and not telling his boss. The so-called commander-in-chief didn't know that his DOD guy was MIA. Now, if your boss thinks you're at work and you're really out cold having surgery, you are not telling your boss the truth, are you? Yeah, we call that lying, don't we? In the latest on the Biden scandal itself, we hear Hunter's so-called art dealer never received any ethics instructions from the clowns in the Biden administration, despite the fact that his previous press secretary, Pensaki, claimed that they had an ethics session with the art dealer, and the art dealer was following some particular protocol, which of course remained undisclosed. Well, the art dealer was brought before the Comer Commission to investigate the Biden family, and he said he absolutely did not receive any instructions on ethics. So what you have here is you've got a guy who is an amateur. Yeah, amateur work sells for $50, $100, who knows? Oftentimes less than the cost of the canvas that is used to do the so-called artwork. And this guy's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in income. Now, what is the purpose there? These folks are buying influence with the Biden administration. Anybody who says otherwise is lying themselves. Let's not keep joking around about this. The guy is not a professional artist. Nobody needs to see any of his artwork ever. And certainly, if you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for his joke amateur work, then you are not doing it to have the artwork. You're doing it to get into the Biden administration. And I am thinking that maybe this is going to back off soon because people have got to be seeing the writing on the wall. And, the election is only 10 and a half months away at this point. That's right, folks. Now, as an employment attorney, I can tell you, I remember vividly a case where an employee of a company that I was working with told me that he had lied about having a bachelor's degree. And I said to him, well, why did you do that? And he said, well, my boss claims to have an MBA and he has a bare bachelor's degree. He's never been back to school for a master's degree. So I figured if he lies about having a master's degree, it's okay for me to have a bachelor's degree. My point here is you've got the liar in chief. You've got people all around him telling lies about his administration and its so-called successes, which are drastic, massive failures. And it appears to be bleeding through his administration. Something needs to be done, folks. Thank you for participating in this special episode of Saving America, where we award the F grade to Secretary Mayorkas and Secretary Austin for not being truthful with the American people. The UAW files labor charges against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Many Americans are aware that an unusual interview took place on X, formerly known as Twitter, recently. Reportedly, millions of people tuned in to at least part of the wide-ranging interview. Elon Musk, owner of X, interviewed former President Trump. Apparently, there were some big tech glitches, but it still ran for over an hour. During the discussion, it is alleged that the two participants discussed firing union workers who went out on strike. Under the rules of the National Labor Relations Act, NLRA, an employer cannot fire an economic striker. However, an employer can replace wildcat strikers and others. While the discussion may have been inadvisable for these two experienced businessmen, I do not see that there is a legitimate unfair labor practice, also called a ULP. You see, the pretext is all wrong. If one of Musk's or Trump's companies had a union, then the workers went out on an economic strike, and then they were fired, certainly a ULP could be filed. However, in this case, nobody is on strike. Nobody has been fired for being on strike. To me, this is just noise and bluster from the UAW. It would seem that the UAW leaders are trying to appear involved. Why? Because so many of the union members see their jobs evaporating under the Biden-Harris EV push and therefore are backing Trump. Also, many blue-collar workers no longer see the Democrats as the party of common people. The economy has been miserable for all, and it has been especially punishing for people of normal economic means. I hope the NLRB will not only throw out the ULP charge, but charge the union for the legal fees for Musk and Trump in responding to this groundless ULP. Saving America welcomes Doug Lawrence. He is the founder of Talent C. That's a registered trademark and is focused on all things mentoring as a solution provider. Doug Lawrence is an international certified mentor and holds 2 mentor certifications, Certificate of Practice Mentor and Certificate of Practice Journey Mentor from the international mentoring community. Doug is the only one to hold the Certificate of Practice Journey Mentor in the world today. Wow. He has over 30 years of mentoring and leadership experience and is recognized as a thought leader in the mentoring space. Doug authored the book entitled The Gift of Mentoring, and his second book entitled You Are Not Alone became an Amazon #1 bestseller in North America and the UK. He is a bronze medal recipient in the Global Book Awards. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. We welcome Doug Lawrence for his first appearance on Saving America.
And thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your show this morning. This is really, I'm really pumped for this.
Well, that sounds good. Well, we're pumped to have you here for sure. As you know, we ask our guests 3 questions to let our audience learn about them and what they're working on. Many business people today spend years in college and a good percentage to get a graduate degree. Why do they need mentoring as well?
It's a good question, and I get asked that a fair amount by people that are in the C-suite or people that are wanting or aspire to become a leader in their organization or other organizations. And a couple things. Number one is that what mentoring will do for those people that have, that have that education is that it's also going to reinforce their need for critical thinking. And critical thinking seems to be, since COVID and a lot of other things that have happened in the world today, critical thinking still seems to be something that, number one, we need, but number two is not as relevant, or not relevant, but not as at the forefront as it needs to be. And the second most common thing that I find with leaders today is we have lost the ability to communicate effectively. We struggle to know how to conduct ourselves in a conversation. We struggle to know how to deal with crucial conversations. And what mentoring will do is it will help you get that experience back where it needs to be, so that it's at the forefront when you go to have conversations, when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with clients, so that it's all there. And from my perspective, it doesn't happen enough. And if I get brought into an organization to work with somebody that is in the C-suite, and I've experienced that a fair amount lately, is that those are the 2 things that seem to have gone off the railroad tracks, so to speak. And that's where I typically will end up spending some time with those leaders, is going over the critical thinking and communication skills. And finally, I think the last one that I should touch on is the aspect of self-care, is that because of the nature of everything that's going on, we don't take the time to take care of number one, which is ourselves.
Fascinating situation. Doug, our second question is explain to our audience how your first book, The Gift of Mentoring, can help people in various fields of work. And in that, Doug, for members of our audience who don't know what mentoring is, would you include explaining, from the starting point, what is mentoring itself? How does that differ from, we hear a lot about coaching today, and we, of course, have people in classrooms.
So mentoring, the best way for me is to give you the definition that I use, that we use through the international mentoring community, and it's a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee or protege are going to learn and grow together on a personal and professional basis. And what's really important here is that most people focus on mentoring being that career development tool that, somebody that's going to help me write my resume, cover letter, is going to do some job coaching and stuff like that. And we lose sight of the personal growth mentoring. So by that, I mean the self-esteem, the self-confidence, the self-worth, all the selves, as I like to call them. And we need to make sure that we're able to use those tools to be able to do that moving forward. And the reason that this will work for no matter where, what field you're working in, is that industry specific, and this is a good point because this is one that a lot of people always struggle with, but mentoring is something where industry specific experience is a nice to have, not a need to have. So if I've got the mentoring skill sets, the knowledge, the competencies, the processes, all of those things that are governed, that support the mentoring process, if I have all of those in place, it doesn't matter what industry I was working in. And as an example, I've worked with senior people in the energy and gas sector, in manufacturing, in the healthcare area, you name it. I've done stuff in that particular thing, and I don't need to have that industry specific experience. And so as a result of that, the gift of mentoring is just that. It is a gift that people need to embrace and put it into practice.
Well, that sounds good. And what is involved in the book, The Gift of Mentoring? What will people learn from that book?
The best way to take a look at the gift of mentoring is that it's mentoring 101.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you, all the tools that you're going to need to begin to start the mentoring, whether you're starting it from the practice of mentoring, or whether you're, starting to, I think I want to be able to give back. I want to, do some things like that, so that gives us the opportunity to be able to do that. And it's, from my perspective, it's certainly it's something that we can use in a lot of different areas, and that's what the book is intended to support. Is that if you want to know, the aspect of, there's information there on history, there's the history of mentoring, and it goes, way back. It's even older than what I am. So, but there's industry skills. There's all kinds, there's stuff on leadership and mentoring. There's, we talk about, there's, I believe, 5 or 6 case studies that are in there that actually bring the mentoring process to the forefront. And so there's a lot of material in there. And that's why I like to refer to it as Mentoring 101.
Well, it sounds fantastic. How about your second book, You Are Not Alone? This came from your own experiences. Explain how mentoring can bring value to the support structure for mental health.
Well, the first thing is that I I wish I had known what I know now. I wish that there was a support structure back when I was first back in I guess the 1970s, when I was a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I was subjected to a lot of trauma that I had to deal with, but I had to deal with it by myself. And what the book You Are Not Alone does is, number one, it helps to try and alleviate the stigmatism that there is about mental health, and that, if you're suffering from mental health, you just need to push it down and keep it inside you, and not talk about it. And what I intended with the book is to be able to get people to understand it's okay to reach out and say, I need help, and understand that you are not alone, that there are people that will actually help you, and help you go through that. It helps. I know for where I am is that there's a lot of issues with regards to with the health sector, with wait times and all that. A mentor who is properly trained can act as that bridge in between. So as an example, how I typically describe that is that I've been diagnosed with a mental issue that I need to see a psychiatrist. So I go for my initial appointment, and then I'm told by the psychiatrist, come and see me in 6 months. That's my next available appointment. And what I'm proposing and suggesting is that your mentor can actually be there for you, and will be the person that you would go to during that 4 to 6 month gap while you're still waiting to get in to see your psychiatrist or psychologist. So they're going to act as the buffer, sort of the buffer between for the wait times. They're an individual that's going to be able to listen and hear and not pass judgment. So they're able to listen and hear. How I typically describe it is, it's somebody that I have confidence in, that I know that they're going to create a safe place for us to have a conversation, that we're going to be able to walk beside each other, and I'm going to be able to, help them wherever I possibly can, and not cross over into the space that the psychologist and that maybe, that they operate in. So for me, it's a matter of just being there to help is the most important thing.
Well, it sounds great. Both of your books sound like they would bring a lot of value to people. Doug Lawrence, how can our audience get more information about you and the work that you're doing?
The best way is I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you do a search on Doug Lawrence, I usually pop up fairly quickly. So you can you'll be able to tap into a whole bunch of information there. You can also go to my website, which is www.talentc, so the word talent with the letter C on the end.ca. And there'll be a place there where you can click on a button, and it'll send me a message, and we can kind of go from there. But probably one of the easiest approaches for most people who want to get in touch with me, and this happens quite regularly, is to just send me an email message. And you can send it to doug.lawrence. So that's doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, at talentc. So the word talent with the letter CN, with the letter C, on the end.ca. And I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And it can be a simple question that you need an answer to. It can be you're interested in maybe having someone walk beside you as you struggle with your own mental health challenges and issues. And I'm here for you to be able to do whatever we need to take care of that, because you need to remember, with me, you are not alone.
Fantastic. Folks, this has been a great connection with Doug Lawrence, an expert in mentoring. Business students, business persons, or consumers, Business law impacts much of what you do. This segment is designed to help you get past the headlines on key stories. The Live Nation antitrust case, what's it about? In May 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice and 30 states sued Live Nation Ticketmaster for exclusionary conduct and dominance across the live concert ecosystem. The suit was filed in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. It claims that the merger of these two companies has harmed fans, slowed innovation, cheated artists, and made the concert venues subservient to their vast market power. The legal basis is, of all things, the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act, which many of us studied in U.S. history class. I first want to observe that if the Department of Justice had not signed off on this horizontal merger 14 years ago, the predictable result of which it now complains would not have occurred, right? Well, how does all this work? Per the allegations and frankly my own observations, Live Nation has a near monopoly in the live concert space, so it can dictate ticket terms to the various venues. So what happens next is, because of its market power, it can lock up big name talent by offering more money and covering long periods of time. So the venues and performers are really just outlets for Live Nation. For fans, it's a tough go. I know personally that I've been shocked at nearly all ticket prices, and then these horrible fees that are charged on top. The lawsuit claims if they can reform Live Nation, some competition will be restored to the market. Winners could be quite a list: the performers, the venues, other ticket outlets, and importantly, the persons like me buying tickets. Two closing observations. One, don't hold your breath. A big case like this takes a lot of time. I do not see any injunctions being requested, so relief will either come following a hard-fought court battle or as a result of a much-publicized settlement. Two, I really doubt ticket prices themselves will come down, especially for the big-name acts. Regardless of who is selling the tickets or hosting the concert, the performers of today are used to those big paydays. Hopefully, the ridiculous ticket fees being tacked on with impunity will be reduced or eliminated. Regarding the timing of the suit, the public might thank an unlikely hero, Taylor Swift's concert ticket debacle in late 2022. And the company has simply not kept its technology up to date since it hasn't had competition. Thanks for joining me for Saving America. If you have questions or comments, please find me on various social media sites. I'm Dr. David D. Schein, and I will see you next week.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.